Okay, imagine this. Europe is kind of waking up, new ideas everywhere, art is just exploding, and people are thinking completely differently about, well, everything.
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today. Two absolutely pivotal periods. The Renaissance and the Enlightenment, they basically set the stage for the modern world.
They really did. It's like finding the origin story for so much of how we think now. And we've pulled together some key insights, looking at what made these times tick, the key players, their lasting impact.
Yeah, and the idea is to make it feel less like a dry history lesson, more like we're actually exploring these fascinating times together.
Exactly. Unfolding the story.
So let's start at the beginning. Florence, Italy. We're talking the 1300s, the Middle Ages are winding down, and something new is stirring. The Renaissance.
Right, the rebirth. It's this amazing rediscovery of ancient Greece and Rome, their art, their philosophy, their knowledge. It's like finding a lost treasure map.
But it wasn't just digging up old stuff, was it? It sparked something new.
Oh, absolutely. It fueled a whole new way of thinking. And central to that, really, was humanism.
Humanism. Okay, break that down for us.
Well, simply put, it was a shift. Instead of everything being about God and religion, as it largely was in the Middle Ages, the focus started turning towards human beings, our potential, our value, our achievements.
So people started thinking, hey, we matter too.
Sort of, yeah. Thinkers like Dante, Petrarch, they look back at classical figures like Cicero and celebrated human intellect and creativity. It became, the intellectual engine of the whole period.
I like that, an engine. And that engine drove people back to the classics.
Definitely. There was this huge surge in studying classical art, classical texts, architecture. People rediscovered the beauty and the balance and harmony of Greek and Roman designs.
And you see that reflected in the art and buildings from the time.
You really do.
Yeah.
But it's also important to remember this wasn't happening in a vacuum.
Right. Context matters.
Yeah. Europe was becoming more connected. Trade was increasing. There was more interaction, partly spurred by things like the Crusades, unfortunately. But it meant ideas traveled.
Like a cross-pollination of knowledge.
Exactly. New perspectives, new technologies. It all fed into this growing understanding of the world and sparked a real desire for exploration, both intellectual and geographical.
And speaking of things coming into Europe, the fall of Constantinople in 1453, that was huge, wasn't it?
Oh, massive. Suddenly, all these Greek scholars and texts flood westward into Europe. It was like pouring gasoline on the Renaissance fire, a huge boost to rediscovering those ancient philosophies and arts.
Which ties back into that humanism and the flourishing of arts and science.
Precisely. And the science. Wow, that was undergoing a revolution of its own.
You mean like Copernicus?
Exactly. The shift from the Earth-centered, the Ptolemaic view, to Copernicus's idea that the Earth orbits the sun, the heliocentric model. That wasn't just an astronomy tweak. It fundamentally challenged humanity's place in the cosmos.
Took a while to be accepted, though, right?
Oh, for sure. Huge resistance. But then you had figures like Kepler building on it, figuring out the laws of how planets move.
Yeah.
It was the dawn of modern astronomy, really.
And while all these big ideas are flying around, society itself is changing, too.
Yeah, the old feudal system was breaking down. Trade, commerce, they were on the rise. Cities grew. A merchant class, a sort of middle class, emerged.
And they had money.
They did. And that's crucial. This economic growth actually funded a lot of the Renaissance. Wealthy patrons, families like the Medici, they supported the artists, the thinkers. It created the environment for these ideas to flourish and spread.
So money fueled the art, which spread the ideas. A cycle.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And underpinning all of this was technology. Don't underestimate things like paper becoming more available, the invention of the printing press.
Game changer.
Total game changer. Suddenly, information could be copied and spread like never before. Knowledge becomes more accessible. Plus, you have the compass improving navigation, gunpowder changing warfare. These weren't small things.
Okay, let's talk people. When you think Renaissance, who comes to mind first?
Well, you mentioned the Medici. Lorenzo de Medici in Florence is a key figure. Not an artist himself, but an incredible patron. His support really helped make Florence the heart of it all.
Right, the facilitator.
Yeah. But then you have the giants, like Leonardo da Vinci.
The ultimate Renaissance man.
Truly. I mean, the range, painter of the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper, sure. But also an inventor, scientist, engineer. His notebooks are just mind-blowing, insatiably curious about everything.
And then there's Michelangelo.
Ah, Michelangelo, the power, sculpting David, painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling, architecture. Just immense talent and emotional depth, that focus on the human form, the drama, that's pure Renaissance.
We already mentioned Copernicus, the astronomy guy.
Yes, crucial for challenging that old worldview and paving the way for modern science. A brave thinker.
And what about someone like Thomas More with Utopia?
Right. That's interesting because it shows another side, the social commentary, using this idea of a perfect society to critique the flaws in his own world. That kind of critical thinking, imagining alternatives, was also part of the spirit.
So looking back, what's the biggest legacy of the Renaissance? Where do we see its impact most clearly?
Gosh, it's wide-ranging. Scientifically, it definitely laid the groundwork for modern empirical science, that emphasis on observation, on reason. Huge strides in physics, astronomy, biology started there.
And artistically, it just transformed everything.
Completely. Techniques like perspective, making paintings look 3D, the realistic way they depicted the human body, the use of light and shadow. These became the standard. You look at the Mona Lisa or David, that's the Renaissance aesthetic defined.
It also shook things up religiously and politically, didn't it?
Absolutely. Questioning tradition, focusing on the individual, that fed directly into movements like the Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther challenging the church. That has deep roots in the questioning spirit fostered during the Renaissance.
So it really was this bridge period.
Yeah, connecting the medieval world to the modern age. Art, science, politics, education. It touched everything. And again, the printing press was key to spreading it all, boosting literacy, getting ideas out there.
And that core idea, humanism, kept coming up.
Because it was so central. Shifting the focus onto human capabilities, the value of this life, not just the afterlife. You see it celebrated in our Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, Botticelli. They're all capturing the beauty and potential of humanity.
And it wasn't just an internal exploration, right? It led outwards, too.
Definitely. That spirit of inquiry, combined with practical needs like new trade routes after Constantinople fell, led straight into the age of discovery, Columbus, Vasco da Gama. They were products of that Renaissance drive to explore, to find out what was beyond the horizon.
Which, of course, had its own complex consequences down the line.
Indeed. It opened up global exchange, but also paved the way for colonialism. It's complicated.
Okay, so the Renaissance sets the stage, and then comes the Enlightenment, the Age of Reason. How do they connect?
Well, the connection is very direct. The Enlightenment, emerging in the 17th and 18th centuries, really built upon the foundations laid by the Renaissance. That focus on humanism, on individualism, on questioning authority. The Enlightenment took those ideas and pushed them further, applying reason to everything.
So if the Renaissance asked the questions, the Enlightenment tried to answer them using logic.
That's a great way to put it. The absolute core of the Enlightenment is reason, rationality, scientific inquiry. Logic and empirical evidence stuff, you can observe and test those, became the gold standard for knowledge.
Challenging anything that didn't hold up to reason.
Exactly. Superstition, religious dogma, unquestioned authority all came under scrutiny. Knowledge had to be earned through observation and investigation, not just accepted because someone said so.
And this had huge implications for politics and society.
Oh, massive. This is where you get the development of ideas like natural rights, the belief that everyone's born with fundamental rights like life, liberty, property.
Right.
John Locke, yes. And the social contract theory, the idea that governments get their power from the people they govern, and their job is to protect those rights.
Which means government should be limited.
Precisely. Enlightenment thinkers argued for balanced government, constitutions, the rule of law systems to prevent tyranny and power monopolies.
And what about religion's role?
That shifted too. Religious tolerance became a key principle. Many thinkers argued for separating church and state, challenging the church's dominance in public life. It wasn't necessarily anti-religion, but it was definitely pro-reason and pro-pluralism.
There seems to be a real optimism in the Enlightenment.
There absolutely was. A strong belief in progress. The idea that through reason, science, and education, humanity could actually improve its condition, create better societies, better lives. This fueled all sorts of reform movements.
Okay, so who are the key thinkers we should know from this period?
Well, there are many, but some stand out. René Descartes with his I think, therefore I am, really emphasizing reason and individual consciousness.
Foundation.
Definitely. Then you have Voltaire, a fierce advocate for freedom of speech, religious tolerance, separation of church and state, very witty, very sharp critic.
We mentioned Locke already, huge influence on democratic thought.
Immense. His ideas on natural rights and government by consent were revolutionary. Then there's David Hume, A skeptic who pushed the boundaries of what we can know through reason.
And Kant.
Immanuel Kant tried to bridge rationalism and empiricism, exploring how reason shapes our understanding of morality and the world. Complex, but hugely influential.
And in economics.
Adam Smith. His Wealth of Nations laid the groundwork for classical economics and free market ideas.
And Rousseau. Heard his name mentioned a lot.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau, yes. Another take on the social contract, emphasizing the general will of the people.
Yeah.
Very influential on political philosophy, especially later revolutionary movements.
Speaking of revolutions, the Enlightenment wasn't just theoretical, was it? It had real-world impact.
Oh, absolutely. It was a major driving force behind huge events. The later stages of the scientific revolution, the Glorious Revolution in England, and of course the American and French revolutions.
Wow.
Yeah, ideals like liberty, equality, democracy, popular sovereignty. These are Enlightenment ideas in action.
So its effects were just everywhere.
Pretty much. It continued that push for scientific inquiry, fueled more exploration, contributed to the rise of nationalism as people identified more with shared languages and cultures, and it shifted artistic styles too, moving towards neoclassicism for a time.
And the printing press was still important.
Still crucial, spreading these radical Enlightenment ideas far and wide, helping to standardize languages, build national identities, really shaping the modern world.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have two incredibly dense but fascinating periods.
So the Renaissance, that rebirth, rediscovering the classics, celebrating human potential, leading to this explosion in art, science, culture.
Putting humanity back at the center stage.
And then the Enlightenment builds on that, the Age of Reason, taking those humanist ideas and applying logic, rationality, demanding evidence, leading to new ideas about rights, government, society.
Exactly. Providing the philosophical toolkit for much of the modern West, you could say.
And it's so clear how they connect. The Renaissance really did open the doors for the Enlightenment to walk through.
Would have had one without the other, arguably. The Renaissance unlocked the potential, and the Enlightenment tried to rationally shape it.
So, a final thought to leave everyone with.
Well, think about it. That emphasis on reason, on human potential, on questioning authority that came out of these two eras, how much does that still influence us today?
Good question.
Are there modern versions, little renaissances or enlightenments happening now, maybe in technology or social movements, that are shaping our future? Something to ponder, definitely.